Alrighty. Welcome this afternoon. My name is Ryan Falquist. I am Technical Specialist with the Center for Instructional Technology, and I'm joined today by my colleagues in C4IT, Madison Gunkel and Heidi Huff-Haig. They're both instructional designers, and this is part of Accessibility, Disability Awareness Month for Ivy Tech Community College. We are celebrating this with the state of Indiana, and we are just trying to get awareness out throughout the college in the different, whether it be the different campuses or through disability support services, and just trying to get the word out. What we're doing with these webinars through the month is we've recorded them, we're having them closed captioned as well, and we're having transcripts created. So if you need any information regarding this, you could reach out to me directly, or you could go through our YouTube channel, the official YouTube channel for Ivy Tech Community College, and we actually have our own playlist. So we're big time now. So we have Disability Awareness Month. So there's, I think there's 5, maybe 6 recordings there right now. So we'll put this recording there as well. So we'll have a place to go if you want just basic information. We hope to grow this as we continue through the years. So this presentation is called Student Accessibility Means Accessibility Too. And like I said, we are planning on giving this presentation here in 3 weeks, formally at the Student Success Summit in French Lick. So again, just to kind of set the stage here. So Disability Awareness Month, again, is celebrated in the state of Indiana, the month of March. It is just a way, again, of working for us, working with Disability Support Services, DSS, and having several webinars throughout the month just to educate faculty and staff on the different situations that we may encounter, whether it be in the classroom or maybe behind the scenes, what both Heidi and Madison do on a regular basis with creating content. So we wanted to share with some of the findings that we've done over the last few months when we've really attacked this issue, and just really wanted to educate not only ourselves, but educate everybody, and really just help the cause of spreading knowledge throughout the state. So we have some links there. Just again, Disability Awareness Month. It is a supported thing through the state. The governor has put together a website. It's a wonderful website with great information. So whether it be a regular community, whether it be a community college like us, other institutions, other schools, anybody can really celebrate Disability Awareness Month and really promote just awareness throughout the state. And then you can see the Disability Awareness, you can see Ivy Tech's website and then DSS website as well. And again, all these recordings will be on our playlist on the official YouTube channel for Ivy Tech. All right, so why Student Success Summit? So accessibility of course materials helps to foster inclusion and is one element toward ensuring that every student persists towards their education objective. And this is what we want to get. We want to give information out. So the technologies explored in this presentation will further empower instructors to effectively set all students up for success. And what better way to do that than at Student Success Summit with lots of faculty, staff, and Ivy Tech folks there. So the presentation of this presentation has learning outcomes, right? So we want participants to be able to identify accessibility checking tools, learn how to analyze a course for areas to improve accessibility, and to be able to discuss accessibility implications related to their own courses. So here's a project background. It all started with VPAT. So Madison, Heidi, and I were tasked with putting together and getting information for VPAT. So what we did is basically there's the Indiana course access program called ICAP. And in order to apply for inclusion in ICAP with some of our courses, our statewide courses, it's regulated. So each course needed a voluntary product accessibility template, known as a VPAT, created to declare the level of its accessibility. So through this process and other departmental initiatives such as Quality Matters and Universal Design for Learning, we've learned a number of ways to improve the accessibility in our courses and in instructor-created content therein. And obviously, we'll want to share that. So this is a great opportunity for us to share that information. Here you see a word scramble with a lot of different colleges, universities throughout the states. In different situations, they've been, as you can see in this next slide, they've been sued for a variety of different reasons. So In addition to its importance, like ICAP and Quality Matters initiatives, issues of accessibility are taking center stage in higher ed landscape. So colleges across the country are racking up accessibility lawsuits. So all those institutions that you saw in that word scramble have been sued for a variety of different reasons. So whether it be Harvard, Berkeley, MIT, or Miami of Ohio, the suits are claiming violations of ADA, so Americans with Disabilities Act, are just coming up, right? So they're coming up all in all different matters. So while we certainly have always wanted to be inclusive of all students, the added pressure of potential litigation is obviously an extra motivation for us. And accessibility isn't extra. You know, what is essential for some is helpful for all. So these are some of the things that we've been learning with Universal Design for Learning. So I'm going to hand it off right now to Madison.
All right. So in part of providing awareness in accessible content for students, we wanted to give you a couple tools that you could use as an instructor or as a student support member to help figure out if the content resources within a course is accessible. And before we get into that, just wanted to kind of provide a visual for some of the information that we're sharing for those that are more visual learners. So we see three different images here. In that first image, we see more of equality. Everyone has the same box that they're standing on. In the second image, we see what we call more as providing equality, so making sure that everyone has the same outcome. You can see two more boxes, and then one, and then no box for that other person. And then in the third one, we look more at actual accessibility, so removing barriers for all. And we really try to focus on in working with faculty, just because some student requires one accommodation or another, doesn't mean that it's not beneficial to all learners. So, for example, a student that may be visually impaired would benefit from having a transcript from a video read aloud through a screen reader, but a student that is a more auditory learner may also benefit from having that as well. So while we do want to provide accommodations for those that need it, it's also a best practice in addressing the different learning styles of our students. So going back to the accessibility checking tools, there are a couple that we wanted to make you aware of. The first one is the Canvas Accessibility Checker, and Canvas is what powers Ivy Learn, so we do have access to this tool. And this is something that's built into the Rich Content Editor. The Rich Content Editor can be found on pages, assignments, quizzes, discussions, announcements, anywhere where you have that text box that you can add text to an area within the course, which makes it really easy to use in all of the areas within your course. As an instructional design team and other members in our department, we've started to look at other tools that go a little bit more in depth in terms of finding, identifying, helping correct accessibility concerns. And one of those tools is UDOIT. This is a tool that only our department has access to at the moment, but we are working on including this in our courses that are being redeveloped. The Canvas Accessibility Checker is a great tool. However, it doesn't cover everything. UDOIT is a little bit more thorough, and so we're trying to provide that extra level of assurance that our newly developed content is accessible to students. So in the next few slides here, there are just some common elements that the Canvas Accessibility Checker will identify, and later in the presentation, Heidi's going to go through more specifics about what is identified on the Accessibility Checker when looking at tables, what that looks like, and how it prompts you to correct those possible violations in your course. So the first thing that it checks that's often found in the syllabus, if you are using the statewide template, is an issue with tables, and it checks two main things. The first one is that the table has a caption, so it should be a caption of the information provided in the table. And then the other one is a table header. So you want to make sure that there are headers that identify the rows or columns, so that way someone with a screen reader can tab through and get the same information that someone could who's able to see the content on the page. And the next item that's frequently flagged are headings. So if you're familiar with the rich content editor in Ivy Learn, it gives you different options to select headings. And this is a way for someone with a visual impairment to navigate through a page, oftentimes using tabs to go through headings to figure out what content they will be reading about. So Canvas provides headings as the page title, but if you have a lot of content on one page, we also suggest adding in additional headers just to provide ease of navigation. And again, that's also something that's beneficial to those without visual impairments. It really helps break up text on a page so that someone who can visually see the text is able to distinguish between the different sections that may be present in your page. And then another common flag on the accessibility checker is images with alt text, or I should say images lacking alt text. So alt text is essentially a caption for an image. So if you had an image of a Scrabble board with something spelled out on it, as we will see later in the course, the alt text image should be able to describe what is in the image, so someone who can't see that isn't losing out on the meaning. So that is very important. Also, default in Canvas is to use the file name as the alt text, but that may not always convey meaning. So you'll want to make sure that you have adjusted that after you've uploaded that image. Additionally, you want to make sure that your alt text does not exceed 120 characters. At that point, you need to ask yourself, is there a better way or a different image that could be used? Because over 120 characters, it kind of goes beyond being able to accurately describe what's in the image if you're trying to convey too much through that image. And then something else that is often flagged in, again, the syllabus, if those that are familiar with the statewide syllabus, but providing adjacent links. So, for example, if you had a paragraph that referenced a document, and every time you reference that document, you actually linked out to that document, that is a concern with adjacent links. So you may only want to link to that once. That could be at the beginning or at the end, just so that way it's not difficult to navigate for someone, for example, using a screen reader. And then also just making sure that you have the appropriate size text. You don't want it to be large if it's not a header, and then also too small so that it becomes difficult for someone to view. And again, that's just something that is important to keep in mind for those without disabilities as well, because even with someone who doesn't have a visual impairment may have a difficult time reading very small text. And in addition to the actual Canvas accessibility checker itself, if you want more guidance on what it can do, there is a link to the Canvas accessibility checker in the Canvas guides, which is a very helpful document. It does have screenshots as well as written directions, so that is very thorough. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about UDOIT, again, this is a tool that is currently just available to us on the ID team, but you can get more information if you're just curious at some of these links here. This was created at the University of Central Florida, so they have a lot of really great information on what that covers and checks and kind of how that prompts someone through the process of making a page, a document, or something in their course more accessible. And then we found some additional resources as far as checkers go for common resources within a course, specifically those that are Microsoft Office documents and those that are PDF documents. So the first one is a Word document checklist and a PowerPoint checklist, and this is actually from Health and Human Services. So this is a government webpage, and it provides a really great checklist on how to ensure that your document is accessible. They follow ADA and 508 requirements, so they have a very thorough checklist that will help guide you through the creation of these documents to ensure that it is accessible. There is also actually a built-in accessibility checker for the Microsoft Office products that if you want to double check an existing document or check yourself after creating a document, that is very valuable as well. The Adobe Acrobat Pro version does have an accessibility checker. However, the Pro version is usually the subscription version, so not everyone may have that. We did also include the PDF checklist, which is also from Health and Human Services government webpage, so that you at least have a resource for that as well. Common practice for those that don't have access to the Pro version of Adobe is to create a document in Word first and then save it as a PDF. Most times that helps improve the accessibility of the document. It's not perfect, but it's better than having a PDF with significant accessibility concerns. So that has more information if that's something that you are looking at. And as I mentioned earlier in the slides, Heidi is going to go through more specifics about what shows up when something is flagged on the accessibility checker within Canvas and what that looks like. Heidi?
Hello, everybody. So next we're going to analyze a course for areas to improve accessibility. Before I begin this section, I want to state sort of a disclaimer. Most of the examples are from a real course or courses. If you find your own course in these examples, don't be embarrassed or alarmed. We're all here to work on this together, and really even our department is learning more and more every day of the things that we need to be doing. So we're going to start with some common finds. So the image on the left is what you'll see when issues are detected when you're running the accessibility checker. The question mark icon provides more information on that specific error. And then inside that, which we'll see in a minute, there is more information by clicking a Learn More. And that link leads to the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, which is an international community that develops open standards to ensure the long-term growth of the web, basically kind of the rules and regulations for the web. The image on the right is what you want to see. It means that no issues were found by the checker. However, we're going to talk a little bit more about the limitations of the Canvas Accessibility Checker a little bit later, so don't party too soon. Okay, so as Madison talked about earlier, table headers are something that get flagged quite frequently. In this case, the information was provided at the top of the table, title, quantity, points each, but because it wasn't specifically designated as a header row, a screen reader can't decipher that row's importance. So a header can be designated in the settings for the table when you're using the rich content editor. You could do it off the bat, or if it's flagged here in the accessibility checker, it's actually going to step you through that process. So it's almost easier to fix using the accessibility checker. And you see the Learn More link that is in the text there. That is what I was speaking about, that links to W3C for more information. The next find are tables that don't have captions. So this is an example of a table without a caption. It's the same example I used for the header, so it also does not have a header. There's no description of the table, and that would fall above the table. So think of table captions like you think of a caption for an image, except these actually go above the table, meaning that the screen reader reaches it first, versus if you had placed it beneath it, like you might with a picture, then they're getting the information sort of after they've had the table read to them. So the caption explains the context of the table so that those who can't see all of the table at once, as a sighted person might, are given an audio description of the overall context. Alternative text for images is our next highlighted element. And again, kind of repeating some of the things that Madison said, that the alternative text should be descriptive, so not just the file name. As we said, Canvas only flags it if the alt text area is completely blank. It's not actually reading what's in that alt text, so you kind of have to just also do your due diligence to ensure that that is also descriptive. So for example, this image on the right, if you're uploading it from your desktop, you might have saved it off and called it Scrabble. But that doesn't actually visually, or doesn't audibly communicate what the meaning is associated with that. So a more accurate description might be Scrabble board spelling out everyday items would be more appropriate. The dreaded red text. So you might have something like this in your discussions. It's the place that I see it used most often, and I know that faculty members use it because there's no way to set two due dates for discussions. So I understand your frustration, but this is not the way to fix it, because it then makes this not distinguishable for those who have color issues. So many colors, especially bright ones, don't have enough contrast between the letters and the backgrounds to be readable for low vision individuals. So even as a sighted person, for me at least, it's easier to read the black text on this page than it is to read the red. I begin to get a halo effect around the letters that would make it unreadable if I had even lower vision. We'll talk a little bit later about finding color contrast and what colors are okay to use if you absolutely must. So next up is header structure. So as a sighted person, I can skim a page looking for elements that are meant to draw my attention, such as larger text, without being told, what that meaning has. But just being larger draws my attention. So, but a screen reader can't relay the importance of something like large font for sections. So you'll see in that drop-down menu, there are actually header designations versus one box over to the left, you'll see there's the point font for that. So instead of just increasing the font to size 18 or whatever size you're wanting to use, you would really want to use the header designation instead, because again, that can be used for navigation. They should be used in order of largest to smallest. So header 1 is what is by default used for pages in Canvas, and it's actually not changeable. And you'll see it's not in your list choices, so if you're wondering where's header 1, that's why it's not included. And then also remembering to keep your headings under 120 characters. So if you're making an entire paragraph large header size, it's no longer a header. It doesn't convey the same meaning. And for reference, about 120 characters. So the sentence that's listed for header 3 is about 60 characters approximately. So no more than twice that length. Okay, so this part of the presentation, like I said, or like we said earlier, we would be using this at the Student Success Summit. So individuals would be looking through a demo course. So I'm going to at least attempt to pull that demo course up to give you sort of a similar experience. Okay, so here's our accessibility demo course. Not exactly a robust course with one module, but it does have a syllabus based on our course-wide template, as well as a variety of pages or elements, assignments in it. As Madison mentioned earlier, anywhere that you can enter text using the rich content editor, which is on nearly every page, the accessibility checker can be run. So I'll just open this one as an example. So, seems like a pretty harmless page. You may be able to pick out a couple of things that we've mentioned already just by looking at it. or other things you may not quite be onto yet. But once you go through this presentation, you're going to feel much more like you have a handle on it. So the accessibility checker is this circled person right here. It's not super large and ironically not super easy to see, but it is a universal symbol for accessibility or inclusion. It's a person with their arms being held open. So you just click on the accessibility checker button, and to the right, we didn't get any fancy birthday balloons, so we do have some issues in this course, not surprisingly since I put them there on purpose. So one of them is that it's saying that this table should have a caption describing the contents. Well, that's true to some extent, but this table is really just being used inappropriately. We shouldn't be using tables just for formatting reasons, because adding captions and headers to this doesn't convey meaning like adding headers to, say, a chart that you have to find the intersection of, discussions and point values, something where you would be finding information in the middle. So this is really just used badly. While I could add a caption and that would make the accessibility checker go away, I would really prefer, for myself, I would just go in and make this text beneath the image or above. Again, this little question mark, when you click on it, it tells you why, and then it links out to learn more, the W3C page, which gets very deep into the technical aspects of it. And again, you'll see it gives you the option of just fixing that right here. So the next item that's flagged is, not surprisingly, a header. Same story with that. We don't necessarily really need to add a header to this because it's just used inappropriately. And the next thing that's flagged is that the image has no alt text. Admittedly, I took the file name out of there because I wanted it to flag it. It wouldn't have caught it if I'd left it as dancing.jpg. I'm making that up. Just by entering the text here in this blank, it will then place the alt text with this image. You can also flag it as a decorative image if it really isn't meant to convey meaning. Sort of my thought on that is, why then use it if it's only decorative? But I know that I have different ideas about design than maybe some of the rest of you do. So again, that's just the steps you take. You just open any page and run the checker, and it would give you the results. I'm going to go back to our presentation slides now. These are the steps I just walked you through. So you have it sort of as a takeaway. If you were analyzing any course, you would need to be enrolled in it, obviously. And then you would just open the course up on any given page. And by page, I kind of generically mean page, assignment, discussion, quiz, any of those things I can think of. And we would click the edit button, which is the pencil icon in the upper right. And then the accessibility checker. There's a guide, again, linked at the bottom on how to use it, but you kind of got at least the gist of it through that little bit of a demo. What about you? Obviously, you're not running this in your own course right now, or you might be, I guess, if you have it open. So it's meant to be rhetorical because you're muted. But if you were to run this in your own course, what do you think you would find? Are there some elements that we've mentioned that sound familiar to you? I would assume that there are, and it's not because you're bad or wrong or any of that. It is, as new tools become available to us, we use them to learn and grow. So as Madison mentioned earlier, and I think I alluded to as well, the Canvas Accessibility Checker is great, sort of I would consider it kind of novice level, but it doesn't catch everything. Canvas, for example, only flags links if they are adjacent links that go to the same location. But UDOIT, the tool we talked about that we're using in course design, flags a couple other things. And I guess I would say that it likely isn't flagged in Canvas because it's not technically making it inaccessible. It's not that it can't be accessed, but there are better ways to do it. And as we have mentioned, it isn't just for students who may have an impairment. It really is just better universal design, better usability. If you're more of a web guru, usability is something that you hear there. So the links should be descriptive. Again, the reason for this is, as a sighted individual, I might skim the page for links, or at the very least, they draw my attention. They're blue, they're underlined, I know what that means. A screen reader also has the capability of navigating from link to link, because why shouldn't students using those have the same choice that we do, sighted people do, going from link to link. So if they're navigating link to link, in the instance on the right, in that first example, they're landing on a bunch of links called here. That gives them absolutely no context as to what here means, where it's going, what they're supposed to do when they get there. So sort of a best practice is to link action plus destination. So you're going to look for something when you get onto this page. Another thing is, and I didn't put this in the example on the right, but when you're linking to files, Canvas by default just shows the file name. So if you have named your file name something crazy like file 1 assignment 5 revision 2018.docs, that's not super helpful. You might want to label it, template for course outline or something along those lines. The second grouping of examples you'll likely find on your syllabi because we put them there practically. The statewide template still uses links like this. It's on our list of things to tackle in the coming semesters. So what I'm calling an exposed link is that first example where you see all of the letters, all of the URL that associate with that link. So the preferable way is the bottom example, again, where you're showing destination plus action. The exposed link is literally read by a screen reader one letter at a time. So in my best imitation of a screen reader, you're going to hear H, T, T, P, S, colon, slash. You get my point. Can you imagine how annoying that would be? And by the time it's all read, you might not remember the information of what you're supposed to do when you arrive there. Another element that is not flagged by the Canvas accessibility checker are videos. And UDOIT flags videos, but it still can't actually check the content of the videos. So UDOIT flags every single video, reminding us to check to see if it has closed captions or not, or if a transcript is provided. The symbol for transcripts, or rather for closed captions being provided, is just the CC box that you see on the screen outlined in red. On YouTube, videos can be reported for not having captions because they're making an effort to caption as much as possible. And those images on the screen there are the steps you would follow. It's a menu item. You would click report and then captions issue. However, there's no timeline given for when they might caption it, if they're going to get back to you specifically. So I really wouldn't place a lot of faith in that changing anytime soon. We'll talk a little bit more, some alternatives as we go for what do you do in this video situation. So again, this would maybe be a point where we would be all in a room and we would be talking about accessibility implications related to your own course. So you, again, have likely had some light bulbs kind of going off in your head as we talk, like, oh, I have that too. And again, like I said, it's not necessarily that you've done something, well, you have, but not intentionally bad or wrong. So we're working just to improve those things. So you may be feeling kind of overwhelmed with all this information that we sort of threw at you. So we want to try to narrow it down to sort of 3 categories that you can do to improve accessibility, like right now. And most of these are things you can do without a lot of technical know-how. So back to talking about tables with their headers and captions. I've diagrammed that the caption is actually the very top element, and the header falls beneath it. I would also say maybe in this instance, the caption could have been point distribution, and the header row could have been all of those column titles. So there are a couple of different ways to designate those. Underneath the image, there are steps to follow to actually set the headers and captions while you're designing content. If you find that those steps are a little too difficult to follow while you're designing, you can always run the accessibility checker, and it will walk you through the steps to fix it. So another reminder is using tables appropriately. So we shouldn't be using them to place things on a page. You're also going to struggle with making a header and a caption for that. If you're a little more tech savvy, you can try using HTML to create columns. And you'll find this on our existing home pages of the statewide courses. You may also know that those pages are sort of temperamental if you don't know HTML very well, myself included. So preferably, you would probably just want to place information that doesn't belong in a table sort of in a vertical alignment, or try your hand at the HTML. Next up is adding text alternatives for images and videos. I snuck 2 into this, so don't hold me to the 3 things. It's a category. So remember, for images, that file name is not enough. For example, the image that we showed you at the beginning with all of the university names, that's not technically accessible. It's way more than 120 characters. It's not screen readable because it is actually an image. We'd have been better off using something like word art to design something that's built into Microsoft PowerPoint. So now you have an example of what not to do. Also, don't screenshot lots of text. The place that we see this most often are rubrics. And I understand the temptation to do it because it's there, but if you're, for example, wanting students in the course resources page to see the rubrics that they'll later be encountering, you could link to that assignment where the rubric is present, would be one option. Or if you don't want that published yet, you could recreate the table on a page, or on the page itself in the course resources for students to be able to see that. You could also put it in a Microsoft Word document, although I would argue that's just an extra step for all individuals. Putting it in a table right on the page would probably be preferable. And then as far as videos having closed captions or transcripts, so if you're creating your own video, just from the get-go, use a script. Your video is going to be better quality, and then a transcript is going to already exist. If you're not creating them and you're getting videos from elsewhere, YouTube actually has a filter setting where you can choose just to only look at videos that have closed captions or subtitles. You'll see that under the features menu and subtitles/CC down there at the bottom. I think we by default have kind of gone straight to YouTube for videos. It's kind of the generic term for videos these days, but we also have access to NBC Learn, Khan Academy, and TED-Ed or TED Talks right through the LMS, and all of those already have closed captions. Many of them have transcripts in addition and other enhancements. So think beyond YouTube when you're looking for some elements. And then sort of as a last resort, you can create your own transcripts using Google Docs. I found a hack that I've linked to here, and it truly is a hack because it's not easy to do. You can open a Google Doc and go to the tools and select voice typing while you're also playing the video. A word of warning, you have to have a super fast internet connection, and even then I had a little bit of lag, so I had to pause and start over a few times. I honestly found the easier way to do it was to listen to a sentence and then speak it to the Google Doc. Not exactly fast, but could work for kind of a one-off situation. So the last of the three things that I'm giving you as a takeaway would be to use color with caution. So if I had my way, my advice would be just don't use colored text. You can use other ways like bold or italics. We don't advocate that you use underline because that can look like a link in the web environment. You can also add images. So the calendar icon here that I've created on this slide, it says Wednesday, your first reply is due Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. I think that draws more attention even than making your text red. And I know I just said don't make images of text, but this one's acceptable because it's fewer than 120 characters. If you absolutely must use colored text, I would claim that you don't. But if you do, use the contrast checker. So the one that's linked here in the slides to WebAIM is actually the same checker that Canvas is using. So you would be sure that your results would match. For example, there's two reds here on the screen, and if you're not familiar with the RGB, basically coordinates, the one on the left passes the accessibility checker, which is at 179 for the red level. The one on the right, RGB 255, does not pass the accessibility checker. And sort of the unfortunate event of it is that that red on the right is the default red in Canvas. It's also the default red in most Microsoft products, but it's not accessible. So you should be using something more towards the color spectrum there on the left. And then lastly, about links, we really advocate for blue being used for hyperlinks only. That is really more of a usability best practice rather than an accessibility thing, but it really just helps stay consistent across the board with giving meaning to what you're doing. I don't know why you would, but don't change the default blue color either. It is set to RGB 00238 if you have some crazy aqua color that you need to go fix. This is the color key to put in. Oh, and speaking of that, you're only prompted for a color key when you run the accessibility checker. So you almost have to do it wrong to be given the opportunity to fix it. Again, sort of a limitation. And then a reminder that links should be descriptive, and that the hyperlink shouldn't be exposed. It should be there inside the text. So with all of that being said, I'm going to hand us back off to Ryan to wrap us up.
Great, thank you, Heidi. Appreciate that. So yeah, just some, in conclusion, looking at the outcomes that we were able to go over, we hope that you were able to identify accessibility checking tools, analyze a course or areas to improve accessibility. We gave a great example about how to do that, and discuss accessibility implications related to your own courses. A lot of times when we're going through something like this, something may be lost. So we've given you all sorts of information. We have references, tools, and guides here that are linked, obviously. So if you want to reach out to us, we also have information here at the end with our direct email contacts. So you can feel free to reach out to any one of us. And we also wanted to give you an opportunity to ask us any questions at this time. I know there have been some comments throughout the presentation. So let me go ahead and read some of those at this time. All right, so from Cheryl, she said the face-to-face courses use Ivy Learn and they uploaded all types of documents, could they also be checked for accessibility?
Yes, Cheryl, this is Madison. They can. So in face-to-face courses, there are kind of basic requirements of how Ivy Learn should be used, but I think it's becoming much more common now. So yeah, they can run the accessibility checker that's native to Canvas, and then they can also use the document accessibility checker. So we mentioned Microsoft Office and then also PDF documents. So that's a great way to kind of double check not only the content that is native to Ivy Learn, but that also is linked in documents as well.
And Cheryl, you also make a good point about TED videos not using the CC icon. That's correct. The CC icon is what YouTube uses, as I just basically shot myself in the foot saying that we shouldn't just use YouTube. I encountered some publisher materials recently that also they did not use a CC icon. It was another toolbox as well. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, so I think those were the only comments that were typed in. So is there any other comments or any questions that anybody had? I know there's still, Cheryl and Susan, you're still in. You're live. If you had any comments or questions that you want to make, that would be a great time for those.
Back to that, going back to that face-to-face situation, I happen to have a blind student enrolled in an Ivy class that is face-to-face. His instructor handed him a bunch of handouts, and so I'm going, oh, this is not accessible. And she said, well, they're all in his Ivy Learn. And so I'm running the accessibility checkers in PDF and Word and fixing them so that he could at least access the ones she handed out yesterday. Who is responsible for checking those documents if it's not a statewide course?
Yeah, that's a tricky situation. When it's not a statewide course, it really falls on the instructor. And unless, and I say that hesitantly, unless it's third-party material, like if it is something that's directly from a publisher, that falls on the responsibility of the instructor. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but she is using somebody else's documents. So I'm sitting there going, she's not tech savvy. So I know she would struggle with it.
Sure. And I know for some face-to-face courses, you know, there may be a program chair or department chair that supplies instructors with course content. So, you know, you may have a conversation with her and ask if that's content that's made available to other face-to-face instructors, if it is someone else that has created those documents that could update them for accessibility. But again, it really does fall back on the responsibility of the instructor to ensure that the course materials that they're using are accessible to meet the needs of their students, which I'm sure you're well versed in.
Susan, I'm surprised you haven't chimed in. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, I will say, if you have any questions, you know, feel free. If something else pops up and you want to reach out to us directly, you could always do that as well. We do love having the opportunity to reach out and talk to people. So, and like we said, this is a new endeavor for the C4IT, for the Center for Instructional Technology, that we really want to address. And so, you know, we definitely love having questions and comments. So, you know, we thank you, Cheryl and Susan, for joining us live here, and anybody else that may, you know, check out this video months later and have any questions, you can definitely feel free to reach out to us. We know that folks like Cheryl are the experts across the state, so reaching out to DSS throughout the state is definitely the first step that you should always take if you have any questions or even comments or things that can be improved if you're a faculty member. I know I've taught for Ivy Tech for over 10 years now, and I've learned so much just in this last month, just reaching out and talking with the DSS folks and doing these webinars. So please feel free to reach out to DSS folks. Also, online technology coordinators are also a great resource as well. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and end this presentation. I want to definitely thank Madison and Heidi for a great presentation, one that we will all, the three of us, will be giving here next month for a Student Success Summit down in French Lick. So we definitely thank you all for joining us today. We will put this recording in the YouTube channel, the official YouTube channel for Ivy Tech. So we look forward to posting that. So definitely look there for other webinars that we've gone through for Disability Awareness Month. And this now will conclude not only all of the webinars that we've done, but this will go ahead and we'll end this presentation now. So please feel free to reach out to us again if you have any questions regarding this or any other webinars throughout the month that you've seen. And we thank you for your time. All right, thank you over the phone, folks. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate it.